Hey guys, Sean here. So everyone's talking about gold, how he has broken $2,000 and how the sky is the limit if the war gets out of control. But I think we need to take a closer look at silver, which almost broke $27 over the past few days and is now resting easy at $26. Now, since the start of the year, silver has flown up by 13%, while gold only did 10%. That doesn't sound like much of a difference, but here's the interesting thing. Gold almost broke its all-time high of 2072 while silver is still miles away from its own peak of $50 back in 2011. Now, I believe the perfect storm is brewing for silver, not just because of the chaos happening today, but what war has unleashed for the metal. What we have right now is the fear and safe haven move into precious metals, but there are events that are coming together to make particularly silver the metal of choice for the coming decade. And in this video, I want to discuss how the fundamentals for silver has actually strengthened and why the long-term outlook has never looked brighter. I personally love gold more, but there is a reason why I have loads of silver and why I am going to load up over the coming months. Now, if this war drags on and more chaos is unleashed, I believe $30 might be on the horizon and $50 will be revisited at some point. We could be at the brink of a modern silver rush. So we already know that war is a real costly affair where either you print tons of money to fund it or you just borrow money and inflate the debt bubble even further. Either situation is bad, but let's talk about the elephant in the room, the 800-pound gorilla staring us in the face. And I'm talking about inflation smashing past 7.9% in Feb. Now, this is crazy numbers, and we haven't even factored in the rising oil prices yet. Just imagine how crazy the March numbers will be. Now, besides the fog of war, I really believe this is the main reason why people are flooding into gold and silver while everything else from stocks to Bitcoin is crashing. Now, people are really fearful of their dollars just evaporating into thin air at 7.9%, and they want to hold hard assets that can't be debased. And if we keep it real, it feels like double that amount when we look at certain things like the gas pump or even a simple coffee at your corner cafe. Now, the thing about gold is that it is really getting expensive, and I mean back in 2018, gold was around $1,300 an ounce, and today it is over $2,000. Not many people can afford one, and this is where I believe silver really shines. Right now, the gold to silver ratio is 77:1, which means one gold coin holds the equivalent value of around 77 1-ounce silver coins. And silver is really very affordable today to many people really looking for precious metal to run to. So the awesome thing about silver is that it is both an industrial and monetary metal, and if gold prices continues to soar, I think people will start to flock more to silver, right? We cannot underestimate this affordability factor, especially in poorer countries like India where money isn't very abundant, right? People still need to protect their wealth, and there's a very good chance they will choose silver. So let's talk about sanctions for a minute. You probably have heard about Russian banks getting $1 trillion of their assets frozen, or how the LBMA has now banned Russian gold from selling in the biggest gold market in the world. Now, all those are very serious, and trust and believe that Russia will have their revenge soon enough. But I think we are really at the beginning stages of a financial war, and right now the United States is winning, there's no doubt about that. But let's focus on the oil sanctions at $130 oil. Now, if you didn't know by now, the price of oil has flown up thanks to the war, and America has banned Russian oil imports as well. Now, Biden himself was on a world tour essentially begging Saudi Arabia, Iran, and even Venezuela to please turn on the oil taps and pump even more. To me, it's quite hilarious that Iran and Venezuela are on the list, but I guess desperate times really calls for desperate measures. Now, this means that energy is becoming more of a concern than we thought, and the world has realized they are too reliant on Russian oil and gas. In fact, Russia is the world's third largest oil producer after the Saudis and supplies almost 40% of the EU's gas. We are talking about Germany, Poland, and France, all dependent on Russia for energy. And this is why I believe the move towards renewable energy, such as solar power, will only accelerate. Now, this move towards green energy is inevitable, but this time Europe and especially the United States are going to double down on the Green New Deal. That means there'll be more solar panels coming up, electric vehicles will be ramping up, and at the heart of all this will be silver. And that's the beauty of silver. It has an industrial component to this, and silver is essential for the world looking to move towards green energy, right? There's no easy substitute. It is the most electrical, conductive metal around, and it is used in small enough amounts that even if the price of silver doubles tomorrow, it is still a small cost component of, say, a solar panel. And I believe these will only accelerate, right? Congress just cleared a 1.5 trillion spending bill, and a huge chunk of it is going to go into renewable energy. 1.5 trillion. I think things are getting so crazy now, and money is getting so cheap that everything is priced in trillions today. I think maybe trillions are really the new billions. So if you were to invest into silver, should you get a physical or buy the paper? I think we already know the answer. It is always better to hold a physical metal, even though the premiums are high. Look, no one likes to pay the crazy premiums of 10, 15, or even 20% for silver coins or bars, myself included. But the recent short squeeze in nickel has given us a refresher class on if you don't hold it, you really don't own it. Now, nickel is a core component in electric vehicle batteries, and Russia supplies around 9% of the world's nickel and 33% of the nickel sulfide all needed, right? And if you recall, the United States is trying to sanction the hell out of Russia back to the Stone Age, and it's no wonder that nickel prices started to rise. So this triggered a deadly spiral of big companies like Qingshan Holdings, who had a massive short position, to buy back nickel to cover the shorts. It's basically the GameStop short squeeze, but this time in nickel. Now, this is one big factor that could also cause silver price to suddenly spike up above $30 or even $50. And this insane cycle of buying nickel at a higher price to cover shorts to only buy back again at a higher price really caused nickel to essentially double in price, to the point that the LME exchange actually had to shut down trading. You heard it right. They had to shut down trading, right? No one could trade. That means that if you had nickel that you wanted to sell, especially if it's paper contracts, you can't. You are stuck. And chances are, once trading reopens, you want to bet the price might suddenly drop, and probably drop or not spike just as hard. And that is the beauty about holding physical metals, right? Especially silver. There were times in history before that silver spiked above $50, and thankfully trading weren't halted back then. But what if it did, right? What if silver gets caught and suddenly flies up in price? If all you had were paper contracts and trading suspended, how are you going to realize your profits, right? And that's the thing about silver that we need to understand. As demand continues to grow thanks to inflation worries and green energy dream, as unlikely as it sounds, a short squeeze could happen, right? The silver market is much bigger than the nickel market, but it could happen. And that's why I advocate holding the physical metal when you want, because if all you have is paper contracts, how can you get out when trading is halted, right? You can't. So even if premiums today are around 15 to 20%, it might be worth it to pay to remove the counterparty risk. With physical, you can really liquidate your metals whenever you want, no questions asked. Now, because of the sanctions, Russia is unable to transact in almost every major currency, including the dollar and the euro. And truth be told, they aren't really sweating thanks to their huge gold reserves. But for the average person in Russia, they are suffering thanks to the sanctions. We are talking about 20% inflation rate on the ruble, a crashing stock market, and businesses just dying, right? It is so bad that people are cashing out and essentially doing a bank run to get their hands on cash. Right now, they're scrambling to buy tangible goods, and you can't really blame them, right? How would you feel if you suddenly lost 10 or 20% of your purchasing power in a few months? But things are gonna get worse, right? Biden is aiming to ban the imports of almost all things Russian. This means that there'll be more pain in the short term for Russians, and that also means that the ruble will only continue to devalue. While I think that things will get hellish for Russia over the next few months and years, I think the people there are really hardy people, and I believe that they will survive. And once they get back on their feet, what do you think they will start doing? I really believe there will be a whole new generation of gold and silver stackers in Russia, and that's the beauty of precious metals, right? Even during a war, and especially during one with high inflation, people will rely on it to protect their wealth and buy their necessities. And that's why I believe in silver is really superior to gold when it comes to butterability. It is easily accessible, and one coin today is still less than $35, even with the premiums, right? You don't need to resort to desperate things like scraping off flakes of your gold bar or pawning off your gold jewelry, right? I really foresee continued retail demand for silver even after the war ends if prices stabilize. But the big question is, how high can it go in the meantime before it levels out? I think there is a chance we might not return to the high teens or even the low 20s anymore. Now, this comes to my final point of why I think the war has changed how we should see silver. Remember all the sanctions imposed on Russia by the United States? Let's remove the fact that Russia will retaliate sooner or later. The bigger issue is that the world is seeing all this, and they have come to three big realizations, right? The first is we need to diversify our reserves and hold tangible assets that have zero counterparty risk. And I just don't mean selling the dollar and moving to gold. How you buy the precious metal is just as important, right? They will want to have it within reach. And I wouldn't be surprised if countries begin looking to stockpile silver as reserves. It is both a monetary and strategic industrial metal, right? Now, the second realization is simple: we need to diversify our energy supplies. Every country today will be moving towards the long term solution of renewable energy. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a solar energy boom and we start to see solar panels going up more on rooftops soon. And you guessed it, right? You need silver to make that a reality. But the one that really concerns me is the third thing, and I believe many nations will be start to do it soon, and that is building up their military even further and arming themselves with military tech. Now, the world is essentially watching NATO abandon Ukraine when they need them the most. All those free weapons are great, but there's no point if there aren't enough soldiers on the ground to use them. Now, countries are beginning to realize that you need to be self sufficient and have a standing army armed to the teeth. And if you didn't realize by now, war is an incredibly lucrative industry, and that's why, apart from precious metals, you see war stocks like Lockheed Martin heading up when everything else is crashing, right? It is what it is, and silver will be needed to fuel this advancement. We are talking about missile technology to fighter planes and even cyber warfare tech. As distasteful war is, it is good business for the industrial war complex, and silver is a strategic metal that will benefit from this. So, as investors, should you be buying silver? I know right now silver is rising higher and higher, and trust me, we are all kind of hesitant, but we need to look at the bigger picture. Inflation is now at an all-time high, and recent events have taught us that having real physical wealth with us is really important. Dollar cost averaging into silver is really the smarter move right now, because short term is really anyone's guess how the price will move. If you started earlier this year, you would have caught silver at around $22 or $23, and that really would help smoothen out the ride. Now, another big thing that I have to touch on is the premiums, right? We all know that silver premiums have been climbing for years now. $26 might be the spot price today, but you realistically can only get your hands on like 1 ounce silver coins at perhaps $32 or even $33, right? That's around a 25% premium hit, and I have a feeling that the premiums won't come down anytime soon, right? Especially when people are piling into the metal. From the higher oil prices to higher wages, I think it is entirely possible that premiums could even rise down the road. So I think that if you haven't built a position in physical silver yet, the window for affordable silver might very well be closing. And I believe that if you get into silver, you need to be prepared for a volatile ride ahead, right? The gains will be more than gold, but so will the swings down. So you need to be buying for the right reasons. I think the perfect storm is building for silver, and it is the combination of inflation, the need for more energy, and nations diversifying away from the dollar that could really drive demand. Right now, it is industry and investment demand that's driving silver prices, but if it does come back as a monetary asset, there's no saying how high the silver price could go. I really think we need to take a look and ask ourselves if we do have enough silver in our portfolio. Currently at $26 an ounce, it is still affordable, and if you haven't started, just get yourself an ounce, right? One coin, and see where it takes you. This war is really tragic, not just for Ukraine, but it has all but doomed the US dollar in the long term. I believe trust in the dollar will continue to erode, and we are at the beginning of what I call the great diversification. So there you have it, guys. Let me know what you think. How do you think silver will perform in the coming months or years? Are you still stacking silver at these prices? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more gold, silver, and finance videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.